to you.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I remember I think it was almost exactly a year ago that your podcast with Mark Vicente aired.
Yeah.
And like I told you that part where you said to him that, how meaningful he was in your healing
Yeah.
and figuring things out. Like I've felt that too before I had even ever spoken to him. Now we've spoken in person a bunch of times and I did his podcast too, but even before that, like I just got so much wisdom because as you know, it's like this ongoing process of trying to figure out like how did that happen?
I know.
And yeah, when you sort of cried a bit when you said how much he was helpful to you, like, oh, I felt that and cried too.
Oh my goodness. You're so right. This aftermath and the healing process really is about connecting the dots. And
Yeah.
we can only do that through hearing other people have the same experience. And I've listened to your Mark Vicente episode as well and got just as much from you. Thank you for saying that. That means a lot.
Yeah. I noticed as I was sort of getting my stuff together and before this, like I just felt like there's this total, complete level of ease and calm knowing that I'm going to talk to you because I know you get it. I know
Yeah.
you've been through something. And so it's like, it's a very different feeling than when you're talking with people who've been through it. It's just like, oh, so much comfort. Yeah.
I agree. It's really peaceful, and I've been so looking forward to this.
Yeah, I think too that I've noticed a lot of the qualities that make us potentially, a little extra vulnerable to these things tend to be very good qualities. Almost by definition, like even if these things hadn't happened to us, we have certain kind of very fundamental things in common, which would indicate that like we'd get along anyway. You know what I mean?
I felt that with you. I've been wanting to talk with you for a long time, for a couple years now. So
Oh,
here we are. I want to start with your book. I really got into it the last couple days, and you and I have a lot in common. It's kind of crazy to me. Starting with Leon, okay, my
yeah.
darling Ivy Sparklepus Godiva, my 13-year-old Siamese, I had to send her on her way 4 years ago, and I'm still devastated. So when you lost Leon, it was last year, right?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just over a year ago.
I was right there with you when you were sharing about your journey with him. And how are you doing with it?
It's hard and it's just different. I mean, I've never lost a human being. I've had older people in my life die, but I haven't dealt with like the tragedy of I don't know, somebody very close to me dying. I just know that it's kind of like it's a whole separate thing and shouldn't even be like something that you would naturally compare. There's something about our animals and that connection and the connection being so just 100% absolutely pure, just pure love. And they rely on you and you're their caretaker. And so when they go, it's like, oof, it's a lot. And, I miss him all the time. And I'm lucky that he had a full life and he sort of died rather relatively peacefully. It wasn't like some horrendous thing at the vet where he hated to go. And I got to be with him the whole time. So I feel very, really, really lucky kind of the way that it happened.
You really did a great job taking him through his death, and you gave him such a beautiful life. And
Yeah.
I hope you feel at peace knowing that, because from just staying current with everything you were posting about it, I really felt that. Do you feel that way? No
Yeah,
regrets?
and I like the way that he seems to kind of live on. Like he had his own Instagram,
I
and
know.
when he passed away, like I posted something on my Instagram, and but I just couldn't, for some reason, I just couldn't like bear to go into his. And so on the 1 year anniversary, I thought, all right, well, I ought to like people keep following him, and so I ought to just have that one post there that kind of links back to this essay that I wrote on my Patreon account about it, and kind of makes it official there so that if anybody goes there for the first time, they'll see it. And just the outpouring of responses all over again. Just people were like, oh, I've missed his photos and I loved him so much. And he always made me smile. This one dog seemed to bring like
Yeah.
people a lot of
So
joy.
much light into the world. Yeah. But that's
Yeah.
you. That's an extension of you, and that's the person that you are. I know what you mean about comparing it to a human death, but how you talked about him in your book got me thinking yesterday about exactly what you just said, because my cat's death came back to me. I questioned exactly how you just said it. I thought her passing was the most profound loss I've ever experienced. And then I questioned myself and I was like, really? You've lost grandparents, best friends, people super close to me. And I thought, no, it's true. Her passing has been the most profound loss of my entire life, human or animal.
Yeah, I think there's just a connection.
She's my child.
Yeah, exactly. It feels, and I don't have actual children. It feels that way. And then I had two sibling cats before I had Leon, and one of them, the boy cat, the brother, I was very, very close to, and I was also very devastated when he passed away. And the way I write about adopting Leon in my book and how it just felt like it wasn't even like it wasn't a decision I made. It felt that was the first time in my life I'd felt so strongly that I was like, I don't know what this is, but I have to get that dog. And it's just that dog. And it doesn't make sense for me to get a dog. It's not rational, but I have to get that dog. It just felt like there was some sort of force pushing me to get him. And you hear stories about that all the time about how people feel like an animal comes to them and who knows what it really means, but somehow or other that connection is just so, so, so deep. So,
Absolutely. And
yeah,
I
it is
think,
in its own category.
yeah, I think it's that way with everything in our life that's meant for us. I think that that instinct, that pull is always
Yeah.
present. And sometimes we talk ourselves out of it, but if we listen, we are always led by that, whatever you want to call it.
Right. And then interestingly, the way that will override when our intuition is giving us sort of not the pull, but the sort of heebie-jeebies that we should be paying attention to, and we'll rationalize that away and
Yeah,
then step right into the fire.
exactly. It's the body's wisdom versus the analytical mind.
Right. And I pay attention to it so often now. I mean, now
We have
I
to live
really
by it
do.
now.
Like if it's just somebody for no rational reason, just I don't feel good talking to them, or I don't, it's like, all right, I don't want to work with that person. I don't want to see that person again. I don't want to be around them. And I pay a lot of attention to just with like friendships and people in general, like energetically, like some people you spend time with and it's all perfectly pleasant, but you just feel drained afterwards. And then there's other people where you don't feel that way and it feels more, at the very least, it feels more like even.
Yeah. And it feels energizing.
Or like people who you feel inspired after you talk to them, and
That's
you not only inspired kind of generally, but probably common among people who can sometimes get victimized is having sort of a certain level of low self-esteem. And so having people in your life who are really good at kind of lifting you up and reminding you of all your good qualities and reminding you of all you've accomplished and reminding you that like, yeah, what you're going through is hard and I believe in you and all that stuff. Like
yeah.
I need that. But sometimes you kind of get the opposite of that in very subtle ways. And I notice that a lot,
You're so right.
whether it's just subtle ways of dismissing things or not acknowledging them, or even, or worse, just sort of subtle digs. I
That's
notice
right.
everything now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, and it leaves you confused, like questioning yourself.
And I've also gotten much more skeptical and much more questioning myself when people do things because I've been in a position where like I need a lot of help. You can distinguish between people who genuinely really want to help you, right? They just genuinely want to help you. And then there's people where they do stuff for you and you're like,
Doesn't feel good.
it doesn't feel good and you can just you can feel it again. It's like you can feel it in your body.
Right.
They're doing it because they want something,
That's right.
or down the road they're going to turn around and throw it in your face and be like, well,
That's
I
right.
did that for you, or they're going to just sort of expect things from you, or they're going to, even if it's just like your time and energy, or much worse, I've been in business situations where it's like people do stuff for you on the front end and then because of that I'll think, oh well, surely they wouldn't stab me in the back now because they did that nice thing. Oh no, they will. It's happened to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, me too. And most people function in a transactional way and they don't know any other way. I functioned transactionally for a long time. and I've really let go of a lot of that. It still challenges me every once in a while. You feel that agenda come up with people, but
Yeah, I notice it a lot too. Because
yeah,
sometimes, I think, will I spend time with somebody because there might be a connection to
that's
something that will
right.
help me with my business or whatever. I think just being aware of it is useful,
Is
right?
useful and it's enough because yeah, it's enough just to notice it because that's your body's wisdom fighting with your analytical brain. Your analytical brain is the one that has the agenda, but the
Right,
body's wisdom is going to tell you what's right for you. And so I
right.
feel that the way I live now really has to be based on recognizing the difference between the body and the mind and really listening to the body no matter what. And I was going to comment on what you said anytime I leave an interaction or, a conversation, whatever, and I find myself questioning, like, oh, that didn't feel really good, but am I making it up or am I overreacting? I really feel that it's important to remind myself of the relationships that do make me feel sure and do
Yeah,
support me totally and to feel the difference. Because until you can feel the difference, you don't have anything to gauge it by. Yeah, so it saves you a lot of time and precious life energy to really just live this way. I want to congratulate you so deeply for the publication of your book,
mhm.
The Girl with the Duck Tattoo. I, being a published author as well, know how fucking difficult it is to publish a book, write a book to begin with, to even think about writing it. But here you are, the week of your publication, and I'm so happy for you and so proud of you. It's such a massive accomplishment. How are you
Thank you.
feeling with all the press and it being out in the world? Because it's totally different than when you're just waiting for it to come out. How are you feeling?
Yeah, it's surreal that, people send me like screenshot, photos of kind of where they are in the book, or they'll DM me about something in a certain chapter. And it feels, it feels like a huge relief that it's kind of done and out. And it feels important because, again, all the ways in which Bad Vegan wasn't accurate. And it feels like, okay, at least I have control of this and the truth is coming out. It feels good. I also jokingly said this to somebody and I realized it kind of fits. Somebody said to me, yeah, it's like you birthed a baby that, you put so much into that book.
Right.
It hit me, and I said, "Yeah, well," and now I have postpartum depression. I mean, I've been very emotional for the last couple of years, but I've been kind of extra emotional. I think also because you feel very, very, very extra vulnerable, and
Yeah, you're
that
completely exposed.
yeah, and it feels as if I had to walk outside into the street like naked and shivering. That level of vulnerability, and like I'm pale and not,
Right.
like just not feeling good about myself either. You know what I mean? Like just that level of vulnerability is kind of how my nervous system, I think, feels this week. I've been getting very lucky with friends and referrals and press and whatnot, but I don't have a PR person. I don't have an agent. I don't have an assistant. I don't have a team. I don't have anything. So it's kind of like all up to me, and putting myself out there and knocking down doors and it is not what comes naturally to me. I like writing the stuff. I like writing. I like putting material out there. I like connecting with people. But the whole sort of like pitching yourself, just the usual, like I'm berating myself because I should have done XYZ earlier and I should have gotten this done earlier. And oh my God, I didn't. I have a website that I got made really quick because I wanted to put photographs. In like memoirs, very often there's like the little insert with photographs. Well, I was going to do that in my 650-page book. I realized I just have so many photos. I thought, wouldn't it be cool to just have like a chapter by chapter and put it online? And that way, if I find something new, I can always add it. And people could just kind of look at it on their phones if they want while they're reading it. So I've created that, and I'm very emotional and just feeling very like the tiniest thing will make me feel kind of upset and wounded.
So important this week and for the months coming to just be so
Yeah.
gentle with yourself and just understand that you are in postpartum. I mean, please, my book came out a year ago, and when I finished my press tour, I developed a chronic case of hives that I'm still suffering from every day. I've been chronically sick since the book came out. because it was
Yeah.
so hard and it was birthing a baby. And yeah, it really does come crashing down on your body once you get through it.
Yeah.
And so the weeks and months ahead for you,
For me, it's like my eyes, my right eye, I have these floating things and like something weird is going on with my retina. And my left eye, I developed this really gross dye, like right the day the book was coming out or the day
right,
before. I didn't have to do any appearances. Like some people assumed, oh my God, when's your book party? And I'm like, I'm not, what book party? I can't, I just,
like,
I'm so glad I'm not doing any of that stuff. But
right.
that would just have added so much pressure. And I'm not like doing a book tour. I mean, the way that I published is different than I didn't go through like with my cookbooks. I published through HarperCollins. I had book parties. They handle a lot of stuff.
By the way, I owned them before I knew you.
Oh no. For some reason I was like, you owned HarperCollins? Like, oh my, it's like what? I
I
did not.
owned your books, your cookbooks before I
Oh,
knew
that's
you.
amazing. I
Yeah,
love that. But, that's a very different process. And
yeah.
so, because of what happened with Bad Vegan and just over, also because financially I wanted to be able to control wise reason to publish the way that I did. So it's not automatically in all the stores, which is all right because I think most books are bought online nowadays. But if I want to get into stores, I got to push it in there. And anyway, so it's a different process. And I'm super glad that I did it the way that I did. As you know, it's a long book, which I can't tell you how happy it makes me every time somebody messages me and says like I can't put it down or they tell me that it flows and
I was
um
gonna say it doesn't feel long. And
yeah.
if I can join the club of people giving you that feedback, thank you so much for writing this. I am blown away by this book.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, the intro alone, I was just in tears. What you said about the way that you chose to publish it is really important. There's a quote in the beginning of your book that speaks to that, speaks to being in control of how things are done, which for someone like you and me who's working through recovery from having our autonomy stolen from us, you say, I can think of no right more fundamental than the right to peacefully steward the contents of one's own consciousness. And
Oh, that's
that's
Sam Harris,
that's
right?
from Sam Harris from Waking
Yeah.
Up. Yeah.
Saw that quote. It felt like that's the right way to open the book.
Yeah, it was perfect. And I gotta
Um,
say, one thing that I appreciate so much about your book, which goes back to what I said about the way to recovery is through connecting the dots. Your book is packed with references and resources. That's how you heal, through sharing references and resources with other survivors. And your book is packed with that.
and I could have done it so much more, but
I know, because it's endless.
I just felt like there were certain places where it was kind of useful to point out. For example, like certain things that he did to me. I think I bring up Leah Remini, and when she talks about being subjected to, I forget what they call it in Scientology, but where somebody's basically like berating you, like they sit you down in a chair and they're berating you and they're training you to not react.
Is it conditioning or a handling?
I don't know, but both of those sound right. But it's like
And
a
I should
condition.
know because I experienced it for 10 years. So there you go.
Yeah, and so he now I realize he did that to me too. I didn't realize what he was doing and why at the time, but it is kind of quite striking when on the other side of this you look back and you start to see patterns, the tactics, everything they do is the
Same.
same
I
every
know.
time in
And
every story.
to quote Susanna Cahalan, is that how you say it? It struck me that her words could just as easily be mine.
She's lovely. Her book isn't about, her story isn't like ours, but there was something about her memoir where what happened is she had sort of very strange brain disease and didn't know that's what was happening.
Right.
So she's writing about a whole thing that happened to her a lot of it she doesn't remember. And something about the way that she spoke about it really, really resonated. And I felt like, so much of this what she's talking about resonates, but I didn't have a brain disease. It was a different kind of a thing. And her brain was, the title of her memoir is Brain on Fire, meaning it was like her brain was doing all this stuff. And I think I write that so much of what she writes resonates, but in my case, it was more like my brain was on ice, like it was numbed. I'm sure you know exactly what that's like
I
and how
do.
strange it is too to look back and sort of have snippets of memories or you just don't remember a lot of stuff.
No, no. I think that the way you did this book really packs it with power against abusers. And you mentioned towards the beginning that you really want this story to have a purpose and
Yeah,
to
to kind of expose like their tactics and their weaponry so
exactly.
that people might, again, if somebody reads it and they've never been through anything remotely like this, and even if they have, or maybe if they have a little, wherever somebody is, that maybe they find themselves in a situation years later and they think, oh, why does this seem familiar? Oh, this sounds like what she wrote about in that book. You know what I mean? Like if I could help what's
I know,
happening
man. You
early
said,
on.
please let it be useful. And
Yeah,
you have accomplished that.
thank you.
I escaped from my cult situation 5 years ago. I feel like there's a book for me to write, but when I read yours and your opening, especially, I'm like, you said it so perfectly. I couldn't say it better. So not that I'm saying there's no point to me writing a book now, because I'll find my own way to say it, but I was like, Jesus, I could not have said it the way that you summed it up so beautifully.
Oh,
It
well,
just
thank
like
you. But
hit
I,
me.
I think that there is a lot of healing that comes from writing it out. There's some studies, I think Andrew Huberman talked about it on one of his podcasts, where it's been proven that writing about your most traumatic experiences actually helps you feel much better. Like it really helps in the healing. And it feels like you're getting it out of you, I think, is why. It's like you're
Yeah.
taking it from your insides and putting it on paper, and that's getting it out of your system. And so you end up feeling better and more healed. If I hadn't written this book, it's like I'd probably be getting weirdly triggered all the time and not knowing why. And now sometimes something feels a little bit funky or triggery, but I know what it is. Or either way, it just feels good. I mean, it's a grueling process, but I think no matter what, it's kind of useful to write it all out. And it's hard to say that because it was really, I mean, there were times where it's hard to describe how icky it felt. And I'm sure you know, because
You
when
don't
you
have to
in there
describe
kind
it
of
to
think
me.
about it and talk about it, it's like, dude, you just feel like
I know.
you just want to crawl out of your skin and like never think about that person and like hop into a new life and never think about it again. But at the same time, kind of after writing it all out, the other nice thing is just that I don't know if I just met somebody and they wanted to know what happened to me. It's like, well, it's all in this
Read the
book. You can,
book.
yeah.
I know, you're so right. I know there is so much power in writing it out, and it's nice to be able to look at it now in hindsight and really talk about it in an educational way where we're not talking about it emotionally. We can have a conversation and analyze it and look at why that happened, how that happened. I love that. That's very empowering. I one of the other things that I feel we have in common is you mention briefly Alec Baldwin in your book
Yep.
as an important person who came into your life. And I know that the press takes something like that and they run it as a headline, which they've done with you, even though he's only mentioned for one chapter. How many chapters is the book?
I think it's 75. I mean, he's
Exactly. I'm sorry.
mentioned in the beginning and then he's mentioned again in the end, but there's sort of one solid chapter that's kind of all about him.
Exactly. Okay, that's my point. One chapter out of 75. Okay. The reason I can relate to that is because my dad being Joe Walsh, and I just wrote a book and I briefly mentioned him the same way as you did, as an important person. The press takes it and runs with it and turns it into something that it was never. That can be a really lonely thing. How does that feel?
It's sort of like I'm not surprised, and also it's like, all right, fine, like it's fine. The Times of London ran an excerpt, including pieces of that chapter. I gave my approval because it's like, all right, I get it. That's what they want to talk about. It's fine. And I guess my fear is I included that chapter because it's part of the story. Like it's part of the story. He was involved in the story that led to Mr. Fox, and they would communicate, and Ilaria and Mr. Fox would communicate. And so they were part of the story. When am I not going to write it? So I guess I'm always just a little bit queasy because I feel like somebody could think that like I'm trying to use his celebrity to sell my books or something. And it's like, well, no, I'm not doing that.
That's the part I can really relate to is I understand that queasy feeling and there's shame in it and embarrassment because that's not the intention at all. And I really felt that come through in the way you wrote about him. I thought the way you wrote about him was beautiful. It was lovely. Flows as part of your experience. And each of us has a right to our experience. And I think you're smart to say that the media is a circus, it's a game, and we understand how it works. And you
Yeah,
just let it do its thing because it's always going to do its
right.
thing.
You can't really control it anyway. So,
Oh. In chapter 54, you were talking about, I want to go back in time and interrupt this awful movie and save the character that is me.
yeah,
You included a quote from Susanna Cahal. She said, I wish that I could, like a guardian angel, swoop down and help protect this sad, lost echo of myself.
yeah,
And you described that for yourself. And I related to that so much because when I finally left the cult, which was only because COVID shut down my acting theater and I could physically escape.
right. That's like getting arrested for me.
That's
That's
right.
like that. And that happens so often that it's like some injury or some crazy thing, like something physically pulls people out of the situation, and then that's the way you end up getting out.
Exactly. So I could really relate. It felt like a spiritual SWAT team like came in and saved me. And
Yeah,
at some point, like that has to click in for you to be able to escape a situation. You
yeah,
have to arrive at like saving yourself somehow. And that instinct has to, click. And so
yeah.
I wanted to ask you now that you can protect her, how do you take care of you?
It's such an important question, and I think, you know, like the answer is that it's taken me a lot longer to recover than probably people think. And what I tell people a lot when somebody comes to me and they're sort of, especially somebody who's kind of fresh out of a abusive situation or with some sort of crazy toxic narcissist or whatever, when they're sort of fresh on the other side of it, and why I want to write another book too, the sort of part two, is because I stepped into another situation. And then when that happened, I thought, as soon as I realized what was happening, I thought, I had this weird sense that it was like there was some sort of, and maybe this is sort of remnants of what he made me believe, but it felt like there was some sort of universe person up there looking down, and they had been like, oh, she's gonna need another lesson. We have to give her another lesson. All right, let's do it. And when I realized what was happening, that I sort of stepped into something again and didn't see the red flags because my defenses were down. I thought, I've got nothing but debt. My story's public. I've got nothing to take. Money. I have no money to take. So what's somebody going to take from me? So my defenses were down. And of course, you learn later on that it generally has nothing to do with the money. So I tell people a lot that, just to be incredibly wary and take time to be alone and to really question people's intentions. And, it's like there's a fine line between being like paranoid and completely shutting yourself off. But I stepped into it again, and then I thought, all right, I've learned, and I've kept myself very protected, in terms of like personal relationships. I had one very lovely, healthy, amazing, not brief, but I got into a relationship with somebody knowing that I was going to move back to New York and he was going to move to Alaska. But it started very slow, and I got to know him in the context of his work, and I got to know his coworkers, and I got to see how he behaved with other people, and it developed really slowly over time. And then also I see now, like, there's a certain personality type that would fall into the sort of like neurodivergent, which happened to be my favorite type of people, and which
Those
is
are my
probably
favorite
why
type of people.
which is like why he and I clicked. I mean, he's brilliant and but like quirky in all of these sort of ways that I really appreciated. And one of them being that like he was very straightforward, like just
Love it.
couldn't be passive aggressive if he tried.
Love it.
And sometimes hilariously straightforward, but like what you see is what you get, which is so reassuring. But after that, when I moved back to New York, we're still in touch and whatever, but it's like I just I've sort of solved the issue of personal relationships by not dating anybody and being genuinely uninterested. And I'm at an age where that kind of also tends to happen, but I think I'm just in what has been coined, I don't know who came up with the term the lonely chapter, but when you're going through sort of a period of like personal growth and evolution and changing kind of who you are as a human being and maybe what your priorities are, you kind of need to go through a period of solitude. And I've been doing that. But what again, where I didn't have my guard up, and I realize now, like, oh, like, is this going to keep happening to me, is on the business side. And I've had people try to totally fuck me over. And again, it's like, how did I not see this coming?
It's simply what we said before about the body's wisdom versus the mind. Like the reason that we, as powerful women in the past, have been susceptible is because we just haven't been in the habit of letting our body's wisdom make our decisions for
Yeah.
us. We've been fighting it with the mind, talking ourselves out of our intuition. And that's where you talk a lot about it's not about being smart or stupid.
Yeah, and I think that the people who tend to get effed over a lot are the people that would never fuck over somebody else.
Mm.
And therefore, like, it doesn't occur to you that somebody might be doing that. It's not there in the forefront of your mind. You're not thinking like, oh, is this person going to screw me over? Like, you're just not, because you're like, well, I don't know. I wouldn't do that. Why would somebody do that? So when it happens, it's like you feel stupid, but again, it's like it just that didn't occur to me,
Me
you know?
neither. I
Didn't occur to me.
understand. Like growing up with the famous dad, it's taken me a long time to be able to spot when people are star fucking me because it just
Yeah,
never occurred to me when I was younger. I was like, what do you mean? Because to me, I'm just me. But
right.
you don't realize that people know who you are before you walk into a room and they want to be close to you. And so now having that radar for when somebody is being overly friendly with me before it feels appropriate,
Yeah,
I've had to work really hard to practice that and get good at thinking that way and having that boundary in place. So I
yeah,
totally get it. Like we are unassuming people, and I think that's a lovely quality about us. It's not a weakness. I'd
exactly.
rather live that way than be pessimistic of everybody.
Right.
Just would. I'm just positive
Yeah.
that way. I believe in the best in people. I want to see the good in people. And you get burned, but you can continue to be that way. You just have to implement what you've been through and what you've learned about how to protect yourself now, you know?
Yeah, I agree completely. It's just like you said, it's kind of like tuning up that sensitivity a bit so that you're like, if you're getting a funny feeling about, like you said, somebody being kind of too friendly too fast, it's like, I'm getting a funny feeling about this. Like, let me back up a little bit.
And it's strange to apply it in business. Like I work with a lot of clients who are like, okay, I understand what you're saying about like my love life or my relationships, but like how do I apply that in the workforce? So I know it's a tricky thing for people in business because it feels like you can't bring spirituality into business.
Right.
But you're an entrepreneur. You've always been an entrepreneur, me too. And I find it funny that you described yourself earlier as not liking the selling yourself part, that you would have created a life where your business is all about that.
Yeah. Well, I think the difference is, like for example, right now, like I could talk very passionately about why Pure Food and Wine was an amazing restaurant and really ought to be back there, and why One Lucky Duck was so special. And while I'm identified with it, I don't feel like I was responsible for everything that made them great. I was very good at sort of curating, like creating the right atmosphere and bringing in the right talented people and recognizing who was talented and working with them in a way that allowed for it all to sort of happen. Kind of like when artists talk about the art coming through them. Like it's not my restaurant, my concept. I'm not the one who created all the recipes. It's not me in the way that like this book is me. I wrote the book. It's my book. So I can talk about that restaurant, that concept, that brand really passionately, and I feel it too. Like I've always felt its potential, and I've always known this is very big. And that's why, I mean, I talk about it in some of the chapters in the book. I was so protective when investors would come around, and some of them are just, and that's again, this is where I have to pay attention to intuition and whatnot, because it's like you get the wrong sort of people who spot an opportunity, but for the wrong reasons, and they want to take it and exploit it and control it. Always very protective of the brand. I didn't really find it hard to put myself out there so much on behalf of the brand. But when it came to like me personally, that's where it's certainly much harder.
Right, yeah.
Or I would have a hard time if people were overly complimenting me. It was that younger boyfriend, Tobin, once who said to me, God, he was so wise. I mean, he was a lot younger than me, and he just was one of those like old souls. And he said to me once that when people would give me compliments, at the restaurant, somebody might come up to me and sort of very gushing and like, oh my God, you're great, and blah, blah, blah. He said that like he could see that I would get uncomfortable. And so the way I would respond was seemed a little bit dismissive, but he knows me, he knew me so well that he knew that I was just sort of overwhelmed by it. And he said, I know you're uncomfortable, but you should just always like, just no matter how uncomfortable you are, just look them in the eye and say thank you. Even if you feel like what they're saying is over the top and you're embarrassed, just say thank you because it can come across the wrong way. And I was like, oh my God, he's so right. He's so right. I'm glad he pointed that out to me because I did for a long time. I had a really hard time. Somebody was being really complimentary and I appreciate it, but all of my insides are like, it's all that like, oh, I'm not worthy kind of stuff. And so you cower away from it.
Yeah.
And he was sort of pointing out to me that that could come across the wrong way, and I should just thank them. Yeah, I mean that part of what I did wasn't easy. Kind of even just the physical being out and being social and talking to people, and that could be very draining because I definitely, I realize now how much I fall into that category of the introvert.
Introvert, I was gonna say. I think that's very misunderstood as coldness and
Yeah.
bitchiness and all that. And hearing you explain it, because I'm kind of the opposite. I'm like very like I love sharing in that. And I'm like, oh, thank you. I really like that. And I do okay with it. It's not an uncomfortable thing for me. Hearing you describe being on the other side of the coin is helpful to me because I realize that I need to have more compassion for somebody and more understanding when they aren't receiving me the way that I think I would, as warmly as I think I would, to not take it personally and create my own narrative of like, oh God, they hate me or they're such a bitch. It's really helpful for me to hear you describe it that way. I will have more understanding from now on.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And there is that difference with us because I'm like, I could never be an actor or a singer. Like, I couldn't do that. That's not what not what I'm here for, other things. So yeah, I am by nature kind of shy. And then also, one of the things that people would say when they watched Bad Vegan was that I'm cold and I was very cold and unemotional and I showed no remorse. It's like, you fuckers have no idea how much shame I've felt and how much remorse and how much I feel responsible for the things that happened and how deeply that hurts. But just because of kind of the way that I present seems just isn't what you're used to. You're drawing conclusions from that are incorrect. And
Right.
I mean, I'm not comparing myself to Amanda Knox, but it's like she's also very quirky. And when she behaved in ways that weren't expected, they took that as like more evidence that she was guilty because why would somebody kind of be acting a little weird or seem unemotional or seem cold? And that coldness is something that's very often lobbed at people who, I don't know, are a bit spectrumy or incredibly compassionate and warm, but just present a little differently. And it can have really negative consequences. In her case, horrible.
Yeah. The bottom line is compassion for everyone, for each other, because we are all different. And our personality that we present outwardly is just a construct of all these survival mechanisms we've picked up through our life. And it really is not anything to do with how we feel, and so we have to look deeper. We have to listen to each other deeper and be smart enough, emotional intelligence to go below the surface and really feel each other, Anyway, it's, you hear that some of the most brilliant people and artists in history are that way because it is channeling, it is flowing through you. And I understand what you're saying about thinking of it as being a part in acting. We talk about it like you're a carrot in the stew.
Right.
It's part of the thing. From what you're saying, sounds like you're really good at delegating to make something successful. That's something I have a hard time with.
I'm not good at delegating. It's more, I'm one of those people where, like, even back in the day when I had an assistant, I'm like, like you feel bad asking them to do something for you. Never
Yeah.
mind. That's what they're there for. And they're getting a paycheck and they agreed to be there.
Right.
And it's more in that like carrot stew metaphor. I'd probably be like, I'm the pot, like I'm somehow the one that it's happening through and around, and I'm bringing everybody together and creating sort of the right conditions. Everybody in that restaurant and operation, for the most part, was just always promoted from within. Somebody would start bussing tables and they'd end up being like a manager. And so I feel like I was very good at recognizing who was talented. And even one of my chefs who was there for a long time, yeah, he had been a line cook and I promoted him to be the chef because he was just that good. Anyway, point is, I sort of feel like I'm like the enabler or the shepherd of this whole thing.
Saying you're the pot of the stew is a reference that only a chef could make. That's perfect. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And that's such a beautiful way to run your life's work that way. And it shows that you are the same as what I said. You see the good in people and you want people to thrive, and that's what you're interested in. And
Yeah.
no one can take that from you. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it got fucked with or whatever in the past. That's your way. That's who you
Yeah.
are. You're
Yeah,
gonna.
it was a beautiful place. And it's funny because one of two brothers who worked there, and one of them they're just such lovely people. And I had kind of forget, there's a lot of stuff happens and you forget. And one of them, he was like, "Yeah, I remember I kept getting fired and you kept overriding the managers and bringing me back." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right." Because he would come in late, or like
Yeah.
do something that's like technically not cool and annoying or whatever.
Yeah.
But he'd been there for so long and people loved him and he was warm with people. And so, yeah, I would be like, sorry, guys. I would override the managers and like bring them back over and over again.
Oh my gosh.
Just because
Wow.
that mattered to me more than anything, that people kind of had the right energy. And
You're
yeah,
loyal, and loyalty is a trait that gets twisted and that gets weaponized against us. And it definitely was for me.
yeah, I remember hearing that in your conversation with Mark Vicente too. It's like, when you go for something, like you don't quit. It's like they use that because if you're the kind of person that's not going to back down and not quit, and you're going to keep getting back up, and they can humiliate you, you're going to get back
Right.
up.
And on that note, I want to read an excerpt from the intro because being unassuming and seeing the best in people and being, loyalty and all that, that does create susceptibility. And this goes for everyone in the world who's not a sociopath.
Right.
Everyone who's normal can't imagine what is going on in the mind of a narcissist,
Right.
of a sociopath. You can't fathom it. You
Right.
can't figure it out, and it's incurable.
Yep.
And that doesn't make sense to a person with a normal mind. That's why we didn't spot it.
Right.
That's how it gets so far
Yeah.
because you're trying to figure it out with the way that you think.
Yeah. And also their behavior, their motives, everything about them isn't rational,
No,
lacking empathy.
right. It's not solvable. But I do want to take the time to read this excerpt from your intro because it is the opposite of the way you and I think, and most people listening. There are people who, if you let them into your life, are capable of targeted and elaborately thought out cruelty. The kind we'd like to think happens only in psychological horror films. These people are real and they are out there in droves. They will study you, figure out your worst case scenario, and turn it into a plan for a nightmare specifically tailored to you. They will then go to great lengths to make this nightmare your reality. In the end, it will often appear to have been your fault. The wreckage will be yours alone to repair while they slip away to find their next target. Those were your words from the intro of your book. Was really important, I think, to set it up. Anyone who's listening who's like, yeah, I don't think they really have bad intentions, though. I think they're sick, and I feel
Well,
bad for them. You just be thankful if you've never experienced someone
exactly.
like this, because if they enter your life and they make you their target,
Learn it the hard way.
there's no getting away from it.
Mark Vicente's, he's talked on his own podcast about a documentary he's working on that's coming out. I am so glad he's made that. I'm so excited for that to come out because I've never seen anything that is so in your face. Like these people exist, this is how they operate, and there's something about it that is so powerful. And I'm really excited for it to come out because I just feel like it's such a massive service in terms of making people aware that these people exist. On top of that, it just feels validating for people like you and I who've been subjected to these people's kind of evil. And so many people kind of don't see it and they don't get it. And no matter what, even if they kind of know the story, they're like, they still think that there must be something we did. I'm excited for that to come out. It's hard. It's part of the thing about these types of situations is that it's not something that everybody generally understands. It's not like having a horrible, there's all kinds of tragedies that befall people, right? They have a horrible disease, but everybody kind of understands it and there's sympathy. But for this sort of a thing, it's like people don't understand it. And so you kind of go through life feeling like people think you're crazy and for me, it just kind of got even weirdly twisted because of the tabloids and then bad vegan piling on. And so people still don't understand what happened, or they think I was in on it, which is even worse. Yeah, it's an added layer of the kind of wound that these people inflict. It's like, yeah, I'll destroy your life and your sense of self and all kinds of things I'll destroy and ruin in your life. But on top of that, on the other side of it, you kind of carry this wound of people not understanding and kind of being subjected to feeling sort of shamed or, at worst, or just kind of not understood.
I can totally relate to that. And for everybody listening about Mark Vicente's new film project, he is actually interviewing narcissists and sociopaths to hear from them what that is like.
So
And
well
it's
done.
shocking to hear. And you just go, oh, oh, okay. They actually don't give a fuck. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I know, and I recommend this book so much that I kind of it's a bit crazy, but I think it's really useful. There's a book written by a woman who diagnosed herself and then got a diagnosis as being a sociopath called Confessions of a Sociopath. I recommend that book all the time because it's far more compelling and in driving home sort of that these people really exist than any book I've read by a psychologist or
Right. Yeah.
chemical because you're kind of experiencing it as close to sort of firsthand as you can. That's sort of better than experiencing it firsthand by being subjected to that kind of cruelty. You're reading her talking about it. And it's a beautifully written book too, and it's very well done. And she examines all the interesting questions like as a society, what if we knew who the sociopaths are, what would we do? But it's a good one for helping people understand that these people exist, and it's really painful that she's out there still teaching and living her best life. And in my case, this guy, Mr. Fox, is out there doing his thing, destroying people, living his best life, not held accountable. And
Oh,
I've got the damage, I've got the debt, I've got all the damage to repair still. Yeah, and for people to just kind of think that foolish, or
yeah.
even worse, when people think that, I was just in love with him and I got caught up in something. It's like, no.
Yeah, it's painful to see them continuing on their merry way. And you realize that there's just always going to be people that will flock to an abuser. There will always be someone behind you
Yeah,
that will get suckered in next.
yeah.
Now it's time to protect you and honor you and move into your beautiful future and leave that behind as a chapter of your life, but not the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think I'm guessing you might, from what you said, you probably feel the same way, where it's like you get to this point where you look at them like you can let go of being mad at them because you just look at them like it's a snake that bit you. If some alligator jumped out of the swamp and bit your leg off, like, well, yeah, that would suck, but you wouldn't spend years stewing and being angry at the alligator and like, why did he do that to me?
You'd handle the wound and never go near it again.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of naturally get to this point where that's how you see them.
Yeah.
And also what's important about that is that it makes it not like what was it about me that made them do that to me? Why would they hurt me? Why would he do that? You know, because I printed this letter that I had written and I put it online in the aftermath of Bad Vegan because of what a shit show that was. I had to kind of scramble to be like, no, let me show you what really happened. So I published this letter on my website. It's still there that I didn't intend to publish, but and that letter was kind of in the immediate aftermath. And it was a letter that I'd written on my phone that I didn't never intended to send to him. But it's just this like, Dear Mr. Fox, and the kind of opens up with like, why? Like, how could you do this? And I'm sort of trying to make sense of it. And now, I mean, I feel like that's like the first stage of, being on the other side of something like this is you're like, how could they do that to me? How could they have done that to me? And then you evolve and eventually you get to the point where you see them as the alligator or the snake. And that's
Right.
just who they are and what they do. And it had nothing to do with me. I was just the one that was
And it's,
there. Conditions were right.
I love hearing you say that. You're right. That is the place to get to. That is the true place of empowerment when you're not taking it personally anymore because it never was.
Right. Like, I don't care
Sure.
about
It's not your problem. It's
him
not
getting arrested and put in jail. Like, yeah, that would be kind of reassuring because at least I'd feel a little bit safer and that would be sort of the right thing. But also like I don't really care. It's not like I feel like I want him punished. Not gonna lie, I wouldn't mind thinking about it, but
right. I mean, there are some days I think about burning shit down, but
right.
then I realize, oh, I actually don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get that. I had all these things to say about like painful parts of the book, but in talking, I realized that I don't really want to go there with you right now because you've already talked about it in other interviews. I just want to say one thing I appreciated so much. Chapter 61 is one of the most painful bits of the book. You're talking about uh the rape that happened, the first time it happened. And that came to me before you got to the end of the chapter and called it what it was, which was a rape.
Yeah, it's I think it's very common for people to have a really hard time with labeling it
Right.
because
Had a hard time even saying it just now. Did you hear me pause for a couple of seconds?
right?
Yeah.
I know, because it's like and yeah, I think I write that in the chapter. It's like,
Yeah.
well,
It's
he
my
told
partner.
me what he was gonna do, and I'm legally married to him, but
That's
like he
right.
told me what he was going to do, and I was like, all right, So it was almost like he said, I'm going to rape you. And I went, but I have to because it's part of the process, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. That chapter was really icky to write, like really icky, just icky, gross, icky to write. It was not, by far, was not the most painful chapter to write at all. The most painful chapters to write were the ones related to the restaurant closing, him getting me to borrow money from people, and I'm thinking I'm going to be able to pay them right back. And then it's like, nope, he takes the money, gets me to give it, and then I'm not able to pay them back, and all of that shame and just
Deeply painful stuff.
and when he would have like I would have to make excuses to people and just all that. What he did to me in that chapter 61, it's like I don't feel like he did that, Like he did that. It was icky and gross, but the stuff that feels worse is the stuff that feels like, I did that. Like
I
he didn't
understand.
do it, but still, it
Right.
just and other people were hurt, importantly. So that's
Stuff where it felt more like your fault. I understand that. I'm not bringing up 61 because I want to dwell on that
yeah.
bit, but I just wanted to congratulate you for making me laugh out loud, as fucked up as that sounds. When you said I was dry as a stale baguette, I
Yeah.
lost my shit. And I thought that was so brilliant of you to have that comic relief at that time because it was so perfect.
I realized too, like I tend to find something funny like in tragic situation. You know, like I don't know, if I went to a funeral, I'd probably find something absurd and comical to distract me. And sometimes laughing, it's an emotional release. So you're actually giving somebody relief by giving them something. And
Right.
I
I
can't
needed
help
it
it.
in that moment, and that chapter was hard for me, and thank you for including it because I related to it and realized that I've had two or three instances in my life where I was raped.
Yeah.
And I haven't realized it. I haven't confronted that word and that truth, but I was. But I always negated it because I felt like, oh, well, I didn't say no and it was my fault and I could have stopped it.
Yeah. Just like within 2 hours of us starting this, I looked at my DMs and this one woman who's been reading my book and we've chatted in the past and she said, I don't know if anybody said this to you and hopefully this isn't I'm not overstepping. And she said, but what he does to you right in the beginning when he gets you pregnant intentionally, like that's assault.
That happened to me.
That is an assault. Yeah. And and I said to her, nobody's ever that out. I mean, I just never thought of it that way because immediately you're like, oh, well, I should have, like, I did say, like, don't do XYZ because I'm not on, birth control. And he did. And it doesn't occur to me, I mean, I was angry, but I didn't think of it in that way. And of course, I just was beating myself up for, like, oh, I shouldn't have done this. I should have insisted on this. Whatever. We just put it on ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like an assault,
Yes.
I mean, and it's horrific if I don't know, if you put on like a pro-life hat, it's horrible to do that.
Yes.
Because I immediately went and got that taken care of,
Me
like,
too.
right?
Yes.
But like that's a messed up thing to do. And it is very, very common. I think there is something about people who have that either malignant narcissism or sociopathy. I just notice these patterns. The thing about like wanting to have a ton of kids, I think it's almost like a part of the whole weird like power thing, and they kind of think of themselves as like gods, and so they want to have as many kids as possible. And then in this case also it's like a control thing because if he'd gotten me pregnant, then bam, we are like tied.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
mean, if I'd have had the child or whatever, like I can't even think of about that.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for that comic relief because that's humans. We are a total contradiction. We laugh when we should cry. We cry when we should laugh. And I love that about humans. And you just really got me there, throwing the dry as a stale baguette in there. Um, Amazing. You're such a powerful light in this world. And I'm so sorry that you have had to deal with not only experiencing and then escaping the abuse, but on a public level where you're exposed by the Netflix show and you're dealing with it in the public eye. You haven't even gotten started yet with everything you're going to create next. I just wanted to ask you as a young girl, I just was curious to know what your heart was asking for at a young age to go out and do in this life. What
That's
were
a
you
good
thinking?
question. I didn't know. At a very young age, you're not sitting there thinking like, ooh, I want to start, this plant-based vegan
No.
brand. My mother was a chef, and so it was something I always like. I watched, even when I was very little, I watched cooking shows and really liked watching them and learned a lot from her. And it was just always something I liked to do. Um, but I don't even I don't identify as a chef because it's kind of not what I do. It was a part of what I was doing, but I like the whole creative process of building the brand and bringing it out and kind of creating the whole atmosphere and the restaurant and the products and kind of having that vision and then seeing that vision become real. And so I had that vision. I mean, there are a couple of moments. There was one where when I'm like reading a book about the whole sort of being raw vegan thing, which is something I never in a million years never thought I would be somebody that became vegan or didn't eat meat. It didn't occur to me in the past. And when I suddenly something clicked and I realized like, oh, this is what my future is about. like this is my purpose, is kind of bringing this out there and doing it in the way that we did it, which was very unique. And then once I had the One Lucky Duck brand too, I just had this very strong intuitive feeling that, oh, I was very quiet about it then early on, but I just felt like, oh, this could be really, not this could, like this will be really big. I had that sense. And that's why when it all came apart, I just felt like this doesn't make sense. This isn't what's supposed to happen. And, again, like all of these positive things are exploited because what he used to hook me was this idea that he was going to empower me to grow the business the way that I wanted. I could be unencumbered by creepy investors or people trying to control things and they might destroy the brand. I could be free to grow that brand and help change the world and all my idealistic things. And that's what he hooked me on.
You mentioned
So,
in the book idealism weaponized.
yeah.
And I can relate to that with how my abuser took me down. They attack that idealistic vision of where you want, your life to go.
They
And
make you think that in order to realize those visions, it's through them.
right. So you had this intuition and the seeds went back to your mom being a chef. That's so interesting. Was she a raw chef in any way or?
No, not at all. She had trained with classic French cooking. And my father, I think, had a big influence on me and on the food side, just from the perspective that he was born in Latvia and he hated junky food and processed food. Like it made him angry. And we were raised, we didn't have a lot of money, but there was no poverty whatsoever. But my father was always very careful with money. But with food, it was like good quality ingredients, buy meat from like this local high quality butcher. Food was always like plentiful and not something that there was any stinginess around whatsoever. And also just really high quality ingredients and fresh produce and a off-site garden. So I think that kind of both of those things combined, the way he felt about ingredients and the quality of food and natural food, and then my mom's cooking, that together kind of combined to my later interest in creating the food from the unprocessed ingredients.
How gorgeous.
Yeah, and I remember my grandmother who lived with us when I was young, she used to like hide our Halloween candy. And I remember thinking that was like the height of cruelty when I was young. I
My
just thought,
mom too. She used to take it away from me.
right. And I think if I had a child, like I would not let people give Leon treats. Like milk bones? No. Do you know what those are made of?
Poison.
Again, I'm such a like I don't want to offend anybody. I would eat the milk bone before I gave it to Leon. I just would not want him to eat crappy processed stuff. He ate very clean. So now I think if I was the grandmother in that situation, I would do the same thing. She didn't like throw it all away. She just
Yeah.
gave us like one piece a day. And I find it horrifying what people eat. And like when you see kids eating really like sugary, junky, full of artificial colors. Yeah, I mean, I think all of that kind of was instilled in me at a young age. And then this sort of came out in what I ended up doing and want to somehow eventually do again.
Yeah, that's what I'm really interested to hear. What are your thoughts of what you want to do next with your love of all this?
Well, it's a whole drama in itself. I don't know how to quite summarize it, but if I write a book too, this stuff is going to get written about. And what another thing I learned from everything that happened is keep all your receipts, all your text messages, all your emails. If somebody's saying stuff they shouldn't say and you can record it
It's
and
so
save.
true because in my situation, there's so many things we could bust her on legally, but
Bad.
there's no proof. There's no proof because she handled everything in cash. There were no receipts. She has swindled hundreds of thousands of dollars from people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything was said in person, and she had a way of twisting her emails to never be able to pin her on things. She would word it in a way where it was not dealing with the situation the way that it was really.
Yeah, and that's when you realize just how premeditated it
Yeah,
all is. Like
I
they
know.
know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing.
Well, if you don't have an answer to what I just asked you, I'm really learning this lately and I've been teaching it to my clients that comes back to the body's wisdom. So sometimes we don't have the answer yet, and that's okay. And it's okay to say, I don't know right now. Ask me again later. Like,
Yeah, I mean, the reason I don't know is just because there were plans underway that got completely messed up, and it's been kind of really devastating. And so that's another thing that's been sort of interesting about this book launch is that originally that it was supposed to be that my book would come out at the same time that the restaurant is reopening in the same space, like with some of the people coming back, and it was going to be this whole big sort of epic comeback. That clearly didn't happen. It didn't happen that way. So it's behind the scenes. It's felt funny with people kind of, I mean, I'm really excited about the book. I'm proud of the book, but I know what was supposed to be happening
got it.
and has kind of gotten messed up in this very, very painful way. Where again, it's like, how could something like this happen? How could I be sort of misled? And it's a complicated situation, but it's been very, very painful and really feel strongly that it's supposed to happen and it's supposed to work out and it needs to work out with the right people.
I get what you're saying about everything falling through. I want to ask you the question in a different way. Take all that away, all the fakakta, the circus, the details, the crap, the noise. I want to know what you desire next in your work.
Well, I want to write another book and I want that restaurant and that brand to exist again. But again, it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be mine. You know, like I want it to exist again for the people. And I feel like it's supposed to. It doesn't have to be mine. It doesn't have to be my thing. But I just feel like it's supposed to be there again.
Well, then it is.
Again, I'm like the shepherd here in this apartment a block and a half away from that space. And I've been here and I've stuck it out in this place that I have no business being in because the rent is crazy and it's incredibly stressful. Yeah, I know. I mean, we're getting into it. There's like this sort of painful element where people just assume, like, well, you live in Manhattan, you must be like rolling in it and you must be fine. It's like, no, it's incredibly
Hard.
difficult right
Yeah.
now. And had I known that things were going to happen the way that they did, I wouldn't be living here. I'd either be living in like a, you know, where I used to live in Harlem, which I loved, but I'd be living somewhere much more affordable in Harlem, or I'd be somewhere else. But here I am because I thought this was all going to happen. And I think that what I long for is sort of like this liberation, the freedom to create these things unencumbered by debt and pressure and complications and fucked up people and dark energy. It's like I just want to create these things with that freedom.
And you are, and you shall. And I cannot wait to watch you continue to do it. And if you feel that that space is going to exist for the people again, then it fucking is, period. And the right people will align. And
Yeah.
any mishaps and bumps and setbacks, I have a whole workshop in my membership on never suffering a setback again because setbacks don't really exist. It feels like a setback because
Yeah.
it's going against how you thought it was going to be, but it's exactly how it's meant to be. That's so cliche to fucking say, but
Yeah, I'm with you in that when it became revealed that this got all messed up, it was sort of shocking and terrifying because it means potentially losing the space when I thought I had it. Well, and I had this immediate thought that, like, if this is the way, like, if what ends up happening is that I end up being able to recreate it there after all with the right people involved, then it's okay. And I will look back and go, oh, it's good that this happened because if it hadn't, then I might have been more entangled with this person that I no longer want to have anything to do with ever again.
the universe did you a total favor here. And the win is that you're able to catch it sooner than you would have been in the past.
Well, it's
And that's all we
I'm
can
in this,
do.
yeah, I'm in this sort of terrifying free fall.
I know. I
Um,
understand. I
so
understand.
it's like when you're falling and you don't know it,
I know.
you just smack on the ground and it's all over. Who knows?
I'm
Yeah.
totally there with you. And we all look at each other and think that we're doing okay and that we have it figured out, but we are all struggling.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten to, this is one of the ways I'm different than I was in the past, where something that would have kind of completely broken me, I look at it now differently and I think, you know what? It's going to be fine. And no matter what, it's going to be fine. And not kind of freaking out about it, even though, I could put myself in headspace and start freaking out about it easily, but I just kind of go, no, it's fine. It's fine. this is happening the way it's supposed to because it happened. Like letting go of control and just going, it's if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. The right people will show up. I can't be like pounding down on people's doors. I can't. I've done a lot of that and it just feels terrible.
Me too.
I don't want to be like convincing somebody like, oh, please come and do that. Like, no. It's funny because you could think of it as almost like adjacent to dissociation, but it's not dissociation. It's just like this sort of determination to believe that it's all going to be fine, decide and know and trust that it's all going to be all right. And to be able to stand in that, because again, people around you will not understand why you're not freaking out or like, oh my God, what are you doing? Well, I'm just going to work on promoting my book right now.
That's what it means to trust the process.
Yeah. And also what you said before is helpful because I know that sometimes I'm awkwardly open in the stuff I write. I sort of moved over to Substack, so like I'm just awkwardly honest sometimes about things because I just feel like I can't fall into that sort of mode of sort of pretending that things are fine or the whole sort of like fake it till you make it or I just it's like I can't do that. And somehow it feels better to kind of be very honest about how I'm feeling, even if that seems weird. And it's weird because sometimes like my parents, like mom will read it and be like, are you okay? Some people think it's sort of weird and maybe cringe. But then enough people tell me that it's really helpful and it's inspiring. And so fuck it. And it helps me too, because it just feels like a relief to not have to pretend.
It's respectful not to sugarcoat things because
Yeah.
nobody can relate when it's sugarcoated, but everyone can relate when you tell the truth. So, okay, my last question for you is what does joy mean to you?
I really like how you distinguish between joy and happiness because you're right. It's like you could generally feel not happy with a situation or how things are going, but still find joy or look for it. The thing that just pops in my head immediately, the easiest place to find it always is generally in animals. And this used to happen. I would see it on other people's faces when they would see Leon and pass him by. But like if I'm out and I'm feeling sad, angry, depressed, bummed, overwhelmed, oh my God, what's gonna happen in my life? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And I see some dog with like happy dog face. You know, when dogs have happy dog face where they're just so excited and happy and they look like they're smiling and you can tell they're really happy. That is joy. I'll let myself notice that and feel it and take it in. Like that's joy. And maybe that's part of why they're here, but that's like pure joy is happy dog face.
I love
I mean, but you can also find it in like there's also some element of joy in just things that are beautiful, things in nature, or I mean, I'm in New York City, so I you have to look hard to find joy in nature, but a particularly like cool, stunning looking tree in the park or some little situation with a bird or I don't know, anything, or even like seeing a very sweet interaction between other people
yeah.
or somebody being really kind, all that little stuff. It's like there's moments of joy, which
Oh,
is what's nice about joy because I mean, I'm just thinking out loud, but joy seems like it's about moments as opposed to like, are you happy or not? Which I find very hard to.
exactly, because happiness to me seems like a blanket statement, and it goes back to what you said about you try to communicate in a raw way. Joy is not sugarcoating anything, but happiness is.
Yeah,
If you present happy all the time, you're lying, and I don't trust you.
yeah. And maybe it's just rare and I haven't said this before and because I never know how to articulate it, but like when people ask, how are you? I just am like, can we just as a society, like, can we just alter that question? Even just the sort of the first thing you say when you get on the phone when it's a business call, hey, how are you? And I mean, I do it too, because like it just falls out of your mouth. That's what we all say. And nobody expects like a real answer. You just say fine. But people ask me a lot, and I can't, like, just to me, it seems like such a loaded question. How
It's
are
such
you?
a loaded question, and
Good, bad? There's no one word answer. Struggle with that question.
it's like you can't get weird with the response because that's just
Weird.
stupid. But it's like the advice you got when you receive a compliment, you just smile and say thank you. It's like all you can say is fine, but it sucks. What would you say should be the question instead?
But I haven't quite figured it out yet. But I have figured out my sort of, if I don't, if I just kind of need to get it over with, I usually say I'm all right. Because all right isn't a lie. Because I feel like if I'm feeling upset about something and whatever it is, however I'm feeling, and I'm walking out and I've got doormen and they're all lovely, but they're like, hey, how are you? It feels physically bad to go, good. And like, I'm like, I know that's a lie. And I feels bad physically to say that. And so I've come up with all right as my canned answer because all right is kind of like everything's right in the universe. I don't know. Like it's like whatever's happening is all right. Whatever's happening is supposed to happen. So all right can kind of apply to all situations. And that's my canned answer, like in those sort of passing moments. I'm all right. Because they can interpret it as being, hey, you're all right, cool. Or it can be like, I'm all right. Or I'm just all right. Everything's fine.
You just blew my mind. I love that. Man, knowing that the doorman was going to ask me how I was every day, that's enough to keep me from going outside.
Yeah, when you just you don't want to lie. You don't want to, and what you're not going to say like, I'm doing shitty or
Yeah, I'm
I had this
terrible.
funny thought of like, like it'd be funny if like in the scripted version of my story, like they show me walking out and saying, good, fine. And then like there's like a thought bubble that's like questioning my life choices or in the throes of existential despair.
Let's just try it and see what happens. How are you? I'm super depressed today. How are you?
I know. It's
No,
like
I
cruising by the doorman, like, hey, how are you? Want to die? And just keep going. And people will be really caught off guard, And like, you don't want to bring anybody down. It would be funny though. You can practice.
Yeah, please keep just. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. All right.
This was really fun, and as I just sort of knew that it would be.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Joyful Life Guide with my beautiful guest, Sarma Melngailis. Connect with Sarma now and buy her new book, The Girl with the Duck Tattoo. All your links are in this episode's show notes. And connect with Sarma and I on Instagram. She's at Sarma Melngailis, and I'm at the Lucy Walsh. You can join my coaching courses from everywhere in the world at lucywalsh.com. And please take a moment to rate, review, like, share this podcast, pass it on. I love you. I will see you next episode. Mwah.